Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Conversations with DSLL. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you to today's interactive session on international legal careers featuring Advocate RaviKiran Garlapati. For many law students and young advocates in India, pursuing a legal career abroad often appears to be an exciting yet uncertain prospect. Questions regarding admissions, qualifications, licensing requirements, employment opportunities, financial planning, and immigration pathways are often creating confusion and hesitation. To help us navigate these questions, we are honored to host Advocate Ravi Kiran Garlapati, whose professional journey serves as an inspiring example of perseverance, adaptability, and global legal ambition. Advocate Garlapati began his legal journey in India, earning his LL.B. from Osmania University and qualifying as an advocate enrolled with the Bar Council of India in 2019. After gaining exposure to the Indian legal system, he pursued further legal studies at the prestigious Monash Law School in Melbourne, Australia. While pursuing his studies, he steadily built his Australian legal career from the ground up, working as a paralegal, legal assistant, and currently as a solicitor at Bentley's Law in Melbourne. In March 2005, he was admitted as a solicitor by the Supreme Court of Victoria, marking a significant milestone in his professional journey. At Bentley's Law in Melbourne, Advocate Ravi Kiran advises clients on family law, commercial matters, civil litigation, criminal matters, and cross jurisdictional disputes involving both Australia and India. His journey provides valuable insights for aspiring lawyers who wish to understand the realities of studying, qualifying, and practicing law in Australia. We welcome you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the warm welcome. Yeah.
Sir, to start with, what inspired you to consider Australia as a destination for legal education and professional practice over other common law countries?
I mean, it's a bit of a weird situation for me because I did my schooling in Australia, where my family were one of the early immigrants back in the 19s, back in 98 or 2000, I hardly remember. And I did my schooling, and then when we went back to India, and that's where I decided to do my law. And then after a few years, and I don't know, I somehow picked up Australia again. I wanted to explore law in different countries and see how it is like there. And then I came back
Right.
here and started doing my law, and I fell in love with this judicial system and the law system here. Started practicing here.
And what were your biggest challenges during your transition from the Indian legal system to the Australian legal system?
Ah, sorry. Yeah, a wise gentleman said to me, he was also an Indian who was practicing as a lawyer. Ravi, the first thing you need to do is unlearn to learn. Because
Yeah.
the legal system in India is quite different. Let it be procedure wise or let it be legislation wise or let it be how the court system works.
Mm.
But when it comes to Australia, it's fairly simple. And to begin with, even the drafts that we draft in India, we use a
Mm.
lot of Latin phrases and a lot of
Yes.
legal language that we call. But when it comes to Australia, they say that your draft should be the most simple draft. Let's just say, even if I read your draft, a young person who
Yeah.
knows English should be able to understand it. Any layman should be able to understand it. So
Right.
that's where a lot of unlearning comes. Where you need to unlearn a lot of things to learn here.
Right. And sir, for Indian law graduates who aspire to practice in
Hmm.
Australia, what pathways are currently available? And in your view, is pursuing an LLM the best option, or are there alternative routes that students should consider?
Oh, again, sorry. A typical Indian mindset is that a master's would get us in a very good job. A master's would us
Mm.
put a good like a
Yeah.
star on my CV. Right. But not only in Australia, a lot of Western countries where the most thing that matters is experience. And if there's a character on your CV, when I say character on your CV, have you worked different jobs? Have you been someone who's very vocal about? When I say vocal, have you done any extracurricular activities?
Yeah.
Have your CV reflects you? That is very important to get a job or to have a career in the West. Um, Doing an LLM is one of the pathways, where there are different pathways. But if someone wants to pursue law and sees, Australia or any other common law country as their place for the next whatever years or decades, starting with graduation is something which I would highly recommend.
Okay.
It helps them to grow and understand at a very early age. It helps
Mm.
them to adapt to the culture and the lifestyle here. And yes, but on the later stages, if you want to do an LLM, that is also something you can do. But you need a 2-year LLM where the first year would be your pricely subjects, where the cross jurisdictional subjects where you need to do your mandatory subjects. The first year would be that. And the second year, you need to do your master's in your specialization. And that is also one of the pathways to get your license to practice here.
Right. And my next question was going to be the same that, how
Yeah.
does legal education in Australia differ from legal education in India in terms of teaching methodology, examinations, and practical training?
So, practical training is a different subject altogether. When I say different subject, that is something you do after your graduation. So, when it comes to teaching methodology, it's mostly practical.
Mm.
The exam patterns that we have in India are like mostly the question and answer Q&A.
Yes.
Question and answer being on the facts. But most of the examination process in Australia is where they give you a case and they ask you questions. You either represent the plaintiff or the respondent, and
Okay.
it's more practical approach than a theoretical approach.
Okay. Sir,
Yeah.
why did you choose Monash University over other Australian law schools? What advice would you give to Indian students while selecting a university and course in Australia?
Yeah. And Monash is one of the oldest legal aid setup in the country, where I think I'm not sure if I might be wrong, but I'm a proud Monash University, so that's why I'm boosting about Monash. Right? It had the first legal aid setup in the country, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
I mean, anyone can correct me if I'm wrong. So they have a very practical approach to education. First thing, and the second thing is it is also one of the top universities in global ranking and also in Australia. So I thought, Monash is a good university. Overall, I really liked the campus, and it was pretty good. So I said, let's go. And one of the second reasons that I like Monash is they have a specific campus for LLM and masters, which is in the city,
Oh,
and you're always surrounded by the courts.
the
You're surrounded by the Supreme Court, the High Court, the Federal Court. When you walk to the university, you see the barristers on the road, walking.
Mm.
And if you want to if you want to buy a coffee there, you see you're always surrounded by barristers. It kind of gives you motivation when you go to the
Yeah.
university, looking at all the barristers. That's the first thing. And the second thing, the most of the faculty come from a non-academic background. When I say non-academic background, you get your lessons taught by barristers and judges.
Mm.
Yeah, and you get a practical exposure from them, which is very good. And also, after you graduate, they also help you to get a job, or maybe become your mentors, etc., etc.
Nice. Did you have
Yeah,
to undertake any additional academic qualifications, bridging courses, or conversion programs
yeah,
before
yeah.
becoming eligible for the admission?
Okay, so in order for you to answer this question, you need to understand how to get your license in Australia.
Mm.
So there's something called pricely subjects. The pricely subjects
Okay.
mean the mandatory subjects you need to do to get your license to practice in Australia,
Okay.
across Australia, irrespective of the state. So what happens is, if you're coming as a foreign student or a foreign graduate or a foreign admitted practicing lawyer in India, there's something on an assessment. You'd be needing to do your international assessment of your work and education.
Okay.
And based on the assessment, every state has an assessment body. I'm from
Okay.
Victoria, and it's called a VLAB, VLAB. So what
Okay.
they do is, they do the assessment based on the pricey subjects, and they be like, hey
Mm-hmm.
Ravi, based on your education and based on experience, you have experience in civil matters, and you have done that in your undergrad, and you have done your property matters, and you have done that, etc. They have like a checklist, and once that is done, they come back to me and they come back to us and be like, hey Ravi, we have done your assessment based on the 11 pricey subjects. You need to do
Okay.
four. You need to do five. So once you're done with that, then you need to apply for university saying that, hey, I've got an assessment letter from Victorian VLAB, and this is my
Okay.
assessment letter, and they tailor the course for you. Like I said in the
Oh.
previous, like I've answered in the previous question, where for the VLAB, for the LLM, first year would be your subjects. So
Hmm.
it's 2 years. So the first year would be the recommended subjects by VLAB, and the second year would be your area of the law that you choose to do your specialization in. And this is one of the pathways. And the second pathway would be doing a diploma in only the subjects that you want to clear. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And are there any significant differences in admission requirements among various Australian states and territories?
Um, so, like I said, most of the states follow the fundamental principle of the priority subjects. It is predominantly based on the assessment.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
many students are confused about admission requirements. Could you explain the role of practical legal training, PLT, and why is it
Mm.
important?
So, once you fulfill your academic requirement, let it be international student or a local student in Australia, you do your graduations, you do your masters, whatever, etc., doesn't matter. Once you fulfill the academic requirement, the next thing would be a PLT. A
Okay.
PLT is a course where it says, as a solicitor in Australia, what are you supposed to do and what are you not supposed to do? And they give you a
Okay.
practical training on how to run your matters, how to take care of your clients, and how to run an organization. Where it's basically a practical experience before work, and it's a
Okay.
mandatory course that you need to do to get your license. So it's a step-by-step process. First you fulfill your academic requirement,
Mm.
then
Right.
second you do your PLT, which is the second requirement, and then you do your get your license.
All right. So, one of the
Yeah.
biggest concerns for aspiring students is finances. What
Mm.
approximate costs should students anticipate while planning to move to Australia for legal studies
Mm.
or qualification?
Okay. So interesting. It depends on the
And
university to
and just
university
to add
basis.
also, just to add, are scholarships, education loans, or part-time employment opportunities realistically available for international law students?
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer your questions in part by part. Not the first part being the fees. It is predominantly dependent on the university basis. On average, you're looking at anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000 per subject.
Okay.
Let's just say that you the assessment body got back to you and said that you need to do 5 subjects or 6 subjects, and each subject would be anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000, and
Mm.
that would be to meet the requirement for the subjects. And if you want to do an LLM course, and you also need to do your specialization, that also says $2,000 to $4,000 per subject, and which would put you on a 2-year mark. Let's say if you're doing an LLM based on university, it could be anywhere between $50,000 to all the way to $90,000.
All right.
And yeah, that's cost. And second, coming to the scholarship, yes, scholarships. There are many scholarships that you can apply, and there are students where they got scholarships. Each scholarship, all they had to pay was only 20% of the fees.
Oh.
So it
Mm.
all depends on how good you are as a student, as in how
Hmm.
good are you with academics, and then the different scholarships that you can apply. And as an even as an international student, the different scholarships that you can
Yes.
apply. Yeah,
Right. So, what
and
financial
in terms
planning?
of the part time, yeah,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Continue.
In terms of the part time, there are heaps of opportunity as a part time jobs in Australia. Um, Now, yeah, your visa puts you on a restriction to work 24 hours a week or a fortnight. I'm not sure about that. Um, but you need to remember something that, I'd highly advise that, you need to have your finances sorted before you come here.
Yes.
Yes, I've seen a lot of students, they lost the track of the education because they spend a lot of efforts and time in, finding a job, getting a job, and doing the job. And they forget that they're here to do the education, and I mean it's not their fault, but it's really important for you to sort your finances out before you come.
Right. And just as I was asking that, since we're on finance, what financial planning advice would you give to someone preparing for this journey? Were there any
I mean,
financial or professional mistakes you made that future aspirants should avoid?
no, I mean, like I said, I can't really speak much on that because, like I said, I did my schooling here, so I'm a citizen, and it's a different approach for the citizens of Australia, where the government pays your fees and you need to pay them back, and once you start
Oh,
earning. Um, I don't really, I'm not really much of an expert when it comes to, what financial institutions that you need to refer to, but I don't really have a lot of say on that.
all right. How receptive are Australian law firms and legal employers towards candidates who have prior legal education or practice experience in India?
Again, going back to what I've said, you need to unlearn to learn. Having an experience on the CV is amazing, but what they look at is local experience and relevant experience. Yes, the way our firms operate and the way our legal system operates is entirely different to how things are run here.
Mhm.
So, yes, when you are dealing with a matter or reading the legislation, your prior experience would put you in a better place than others. But when it comes to finding a job, I wouldn't say that it would make a great difference.
Okay. Which areas of legal practice currently offer promising opportunities for international lawyers? And what skills or experience can Indian law students develop today to improve their employability in Australia?
Yes, I mean, like I said, there's no, you can't do an apple to apple comparison when it comes to which area pays you better. And it all depends on if you, let's just say, down the lane, you are the best criminal lawyer and you get better
Mm.
than what most of the commercial lawyers make. It all depends on you. But needless to say that mostly the commercial lawyers are the one who gets the highest paid.
Right. And sir, I know that you mentioned before, but what cultural or professional differences surprised you the most when you entered the Australian legal profession? And how would you compare the work culture and work-life balance of lawyers in Australia with that of lawyers in India?
Again, work-life balance is a myth. And
Yes.
let it be, once you decide to be in the legal profession, your client
Mm.
keeps on, they never stop about you. But irrespectively, you see a better work-life balance in Australia when you compare to India. The reason that being is a typical Indian lawyer job would be go to the court at 9 o'clock and finish by 4:35 and get back to the office and stay there by 10:30.
Yeah.
But as a solicitor, you don't go to court on daily basis. You mostly have a 9 to 5 job, and once you get back home, you do your readings then a couple of hours reading, and you have time for yourself. When it comes to work-life balance, yes, and I would definitely say that Australia sits in a better position than India, but you can't really ask a question of a work-life balance to a lawyer. But when it comes to the cultural differences, yes, there would be cultural differences irrespective of what area of work you are in. But when it comes to the way we operate here, it's pretty straightforward and pretty systematic, and it is very procedural. When I say
Okay.
procedural in nature, the practice, you all, any small mistake you do, you are at a risk of losing your license.
Hmm.
So we have a step-by-step approach to every small thing that we do. Let's just say I need to file an application in the court. The court has a procedures, right? Agreed. But how do you get instructions from your client? You need to follow certain
Hmm.
procedures. So it's a very procedurally dense practice. But and also, like I said, you need to be very careful. You're always on the risk of losing your license.
Yes.
It's quite different in India.
Yes, it is. And
Yeah.
so, lastly, has your Indian legal background provided any unique advantages in your Australian legal career? And how do you see legal collaboration and professional opportunities between India and Australia evolving in the coming decade?
Yeah, I mean, like when you say advantages, the only advantages that I had was getting a clients who had corporations in cross-border jurisdictions. When I say
Okay.
cross-border jurisdictions, let's say I have a client who does his business in Australia and India. I would be the best person for him to, and more of like a best person, one person that he needs to handle, because I can advise him on the Indian jurisdiction and Indian legislation, and also advise him on the
Mm.
Australian jurisdiction and Australian legislation. Most of the cross, and even when it comes to family matters, because like we have dowry and etc. etc.
Mm.
Issues in India
Yeah.
that is not understandable in Australia to any other Australian lawyers who are from here. It
Yes.
puts us in a special place where we also understand the system, how it works there. And we are often in a better position to advise the clients in a better way, saying that, hey, if you do this, or if you file this case in India, it might be not better for you. Australia might be a better place for you, or better jurisdiction for you to file your matter here. I'm mostly advising Indian clients who have issues in Australia and India. That has added value advantage to my career.
And how do you see the legal collaboration, professional opportunities between India and Australia?
Um, Now, first of all, India, Australia, no, I don't see any collaboration because they're not even part of the A Convention.
Okay.
And secondly, like I said, the work's quite different. But you see a lot of Indian, Australian, Australian, American, and Canadian law firms. They're outsourcing the legal work to a lot of Indian firms.
Yeah.
And I would say that in coming down the lane, I mean, now America and Canada are the biggest market, but I see Australian firms outsourcing to their work to Indian firms a lot. Maybe down the line, next in 5, 10 years, I see that Australia is also going to be the one of the biggest markets here.
All right. Sir, thank you so much for sharing your experience and insights with such
Yeah.
honesty and clarity. Today's discussion has demonstrated that international legal careers are not merely aspirations, but achievable goals when approached with proper
Hmm.
planning, perseverance, and commitment. I'm certain that our participants will leave this session with greater clarity and confidence regarding the opportunities that exist beyond traditional career pathways. On behalf of our institution and all the participants present today, I extend our heartfelt gratitude for your time, wisdom, and willingness to share your journey with us. We wish you continued success in your professional endeavors and hope to have the privilege of hosting you again in the future. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.